All right, and it's 12 o'clock. Hi, I'm Robin Ice, Director of the General Legal Studies and Applied Business Programs at Tulane School of Professional Advancement. Before coming to Tulane, I practiced toxic tort law for over 20 years, focusing mostly on helping clients to manage and emerge from crises caused by airborne toxins and contaminants. Right now, we're all in the midst of a crisis caused by a contaminant, the coronavirus. The last few weeks have brought major changes to all of us, and we don't know when things will exactly return to normal. Still, even with all this uncertainty, there are things you can do to manage the crisis and protect yourself and your family. Today, we're going to highlight some of the resources that are out there and touch on some actions that you can take to maintain your legal position. First, the fine print. I want to stress that nothing we discuss today is intended as legal advice or tax advice about your specific circumstances. Mainly, you want to provide a roadmap that will show you some of the resources that are out there and that may be helpful to you. Let's talk first about some of the terms. Crisis management to me is navigating difficult and or unforeseen circumstances and emerging with your legal position intact. But what is your legal position? That includes your real property. If you rent, it's your leased property, your finances, investments maybe, insurance, your employment, your all-important credit rating, and other aspects that make up your standing in the world and your good name. Today, we're going to talk about several points and several resources that are available and also some actions. We'll start with the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or CARES, which was passed on March 27th. It's brand new, but we do know some of the things that it provides. And we will also talk about Louisiana state resources that are available and how to apply for them. Tips for navigating the online application process, which can be so frustrating, maintaining communications with your creditors, and other simple legal actions that everyone really should perform, whether we're in a pandemic or not. First of all, let's look at this CARES Act, because this is a major piece of legislation. It is intended to provide help for healthcare businesses, financial firms, airline and other transportation businesses, and small and large businesses, as well as individuals. And our focus today is going to be on individuals. It provides aid in various forms that include loans, direct payments to taxpayers, and changes to some tax provisions that provide refunds or benefits back. You also need to know that the CARES Act includes other programs that we can't discuss today because we just don't have time. But these include two that are going to be of interest to you and you will probably want to look at later. One is the Paycheck Protection Program, and this is intended to help small businesses hold on to their workers, pay their bills, pay their rent, and otherwise stay in business through loans that banks issue. This is already underway, and you've probably heard some reports about this, so we'll see how this plays out. It should be very helpful to those who really need it. The CARES Act also includes the Public Health and Social Services Emergency Fund, which addresses public health, social services programs, hospitals, and other healthcare providers who are incurring expenses and losing revenues due to the COVID-19. But let's look at what the CARES Act provides for individuals, because these are really important to the average citizen and probably to you. First, it's recovery checks to individual taxpayers. This is going to be immediate cash through checks or tax refunds to US taxpayers, individuals receiving up to $1,200, $2,400 for couples who are married and filing jointly, and $500 for certain qualifying children. The CARES Act also provides for a 120-day ban on evictions for many renters. But don't take any of this for granted. Contact your landlord as soon as possible, and definitely before you miss or skip a payment. The CARES Act also provides a moratorium on foreclosures for most, quote unquote, federal-backed mortgages. And these would include Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, other mortgages that are backed by these institutions. Again, you want to confirm that this applies to you. So if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, contact your mortgage company. And again, if you fear that you will miss a mortgage payment, or you think it's likely, or you're just worried about it, contact your lender as soon as possible. And for additional assistance and guidance, contact HUD. There is a HUD number that I have provided in the materials, and it's open 24/7. You can talk to HUD-approved housing counselors and maybe see if there are some options for foreclosure avoidance and other hardship resources that might apply to you and might be helpful for you. Additional provisions in the CARES Act. Well, this is a good one. The federal tax filing date was postponed from the usual day, which would have been today, April 15th, to July 15th, 2020. There is also forbearance for certain student loans. For federally issued and federally held student loans, there's automatic forbearance until September 30th, 2020, with no interest accrued. But again, this is limited to those loans that were issued by the federal government and are still held by the federal government. As you know, in many instances, those loans are sold to other financial institutions. So you may not be paying the US government still. They may not still own your loan. So you want to contact your lender, your creditor for your student loans, and confirm whether this forbearance provision would apply to you before missing any payments. And you can also, if you have student loans, be sure and go to this site. I've provided the link to the US Department of Education student loan site. They have a wealth of information, including a lot of information that is focused on the current pandemic, and it may be helpful to you. The CARES Act also has expanded unemployment benefits, very helpful in a situation where so many workers have lost their jobs. There is pandemic unemployment assistance for workers who are self-employed, independent contractors, or people with limited work history who normally would not be eligible for unemployment benefits, but have been impacted by COVID-19. So these employees who lost their jobs are eligible to apply for unemployment now. The Act also provides for increased payments on top of the normal state payments that are issued to those who are receiving unemployment. There's an additional $600 per week would go to each recipient of unemployment insurance or PUA for up to 4 months. Presumably, this would be extended if the pandemic lasts longer, but as with all of these provisions, it's wait and see. We don't know yet. Another act that was impacted, the Federal Emergency Sick Leave Act. Let's take a look at this. And again, as with all of these, it's just an overview, but this could be very useful because it is eligible. It applies to those who are subject to any of these 4 conditions. If you have to quarantine due to COVID-19, if your healthcare provider, your doctor, advises that you must self-quarantine, if you have coronavirus symptoms, or if you're caring for another person, if you're taking care of another person who exhibits any of the three conditions above. As with any of these, you want to be sure and document the advice from your healthcare provider. You want to have written confirmation of all of these conditions so that you can confirm your eligibility. But assuming that you can, these are provisions that might provide much needed aid to many Americans. Next is the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act, or FMLA, with which we're already familiar. And in this instance, they have made some temporary amendments to this act in light of the pandemic. First, they have expanded the scope of the act to include all employers of fewer than 500 employees. It previously was employers of fewer than 50. So this is a big change. It allows for FMLA benefits for up to 10 weeks. It also provides for emergency leave, which is also paid leave, for people who have been in a job for at least 30 days and are not able to work at home because they're caring for a minor child who's out of school or out of daycare or otherwise at home and needing their attention. This FMLA revision provides for 12 weeks of protected leave with the first 10 days unpaid, and then two-thirds pay at the regular rate for the regular hours. So that's a pretty good benefit. It also provides for restoration of your position after the emergency leave is over, presumably after this pandemic ends. But as with all of these, the bottom line is going to be check with your employer, find out what documentation is needed, and follow all of the directions. Provide every bit of information that is needed to ensure that you get what you're entitled to get. Let's look at some of the resources that are available in Louisiana to Louisiana citizens and residents. First, where do you go for help with your food? The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, is available. You can find them on the Department of Child and Family Services Louisiana Cafe customer portal. I provided the link on my materials here. And when you go to this portal, you'll see that they have more than a few possible options for assistance. It's not just SNAP. There are several other resources there that you will want to explore if you are in need. And if you have questions about any of this, they also provide a question and answer on the second link that I've provided, and you should explore both of these. I highly recommend that you do this. There may be benefits that I don't know about that may apply to you, and you'll want to see what they could be. Next, the all-important unemployment benefits. We've had many of our students and acquaintances who've had to apply for unemployment benefits since the social distancing caused the loss of so many jobs in the tourist and hospitality industries. So where do you go for employment benefits? The Louisiana Workforce Commission, the Department of Labor. This is the link to their site that I provided, and you will see their logo, the HIRE logo, helping individuals reach employment, which is the umbrella under which the unemployment programs are operated here in Louisiana. Now, how to navigate these applications. These can be so frustrating, cause major headaches for applicants because they tend to time out before you're finished. They may have requirements for you to take certain actions before you can upload documents. So to help you avoid some of these frustrations, I have put together this list of tips. First of all, truly read all directions carefully. First, if they offer a tutorial, take the tutorial. It can definitely help you know how to navigate through the site and how to get from point A to point B. If they have frequently asked questions, read them. There may be one that applies to you. There may be someone who asked that all-important question about whether you can complete this application on your cell phone, but you have to read the FAQs. Next, make sure that you have all of the necessary information and documents at your fingertips. If you know that you're going to be required to upload documents, scan them if you have a scanner. If you don't have a scanner, take photographs of them, save the images, label them properly, and put all of the documents in a folder online so that you can access and upload them very easily when you're in the midst of the application. Next, be sure that you download ahead of time, if possible, any necessary software. For example, on the SNAP application site, you're required to download specific software that they provide and that is an easy download before you can upload the documents that are required for that application. So you want to find out what these requirements are and fulfill them in advance to the extent you can so that you're not using up valuable time. Finally, two very important points that apply to this and, of course, other aspects of your life. Focus. When completing these applications, don't try to multitask. Don't try to do it while you're talking on the phone to someone or trying to cook dinner or trying to work with your children. It won't work, and you will lose time and your frustration factor will definitely increase. So do the one thing, set aside time to do this one thing. And finally, be methodical about the whole process. Take it step by step. Don't rush. Don't get frustrated if you can to the extent possible, and take it one step at a time and you will get through it. Next, between paychecks or the unemployment hasn't kicked in, well, you may be struggling with bills. And here, the bottom line and the top line are both communication with lenders. But if you are struggling with income gaps at this point, the first thing to do is establish priorities. Who needs to be paid first? And when you're putting together these priorities, the basic necessities are going to jump to mind: food, clothing, shelter, of course, your children. But let's talk about housing first. If you are suffering an income gap, first notify your landlord if you rent, or your mortgage company. Notify the utility companies before you have missed any payments. If you're in danger of missing payments, if you fear that the check won't come in time, notify them. You can also call the 211 network for this area or the area wherever you may live. I've provided the link to the Louisiana 211 network, but you can't, if you go there, you'll provide links to other states as well. You definitely want to do this. And you want to also contact insurance carriers. There may be possibilities, there may be options for extensions of premium due dates or possibly forgiveness, but you won't know if you don't call them. And what you don't want is to wait too long and have your insurance lapse. So make sure you make those calls. And contact other creditors. If you have credit cards, contact the bank or other issuing institutions. And to the extent you can, make minimum payments, keep them afloat. The bottom line, though, again, is call or email early and do it often. Follow up. And when you do this, get the name of the person with whom you're communicating. If it's by phone, get that person's name, make a note of the time. And the reason for this is on their side, they will also be making similar records, and you want to be in those records. Make sure that you understand what they have said, repeat it back to them, and to the extent possible, send a confirmatory email. That can be helpful. But you want to be in their records, and that is why I stress email or call early and often. Your insurance company, your mortgage company, any other lender maintains online records of each conversation, and If you are making those calls and following up and demonstrating a good faith effort to make good on your bills, that will go a long way once this pandemic is over. And finally, some other important legal actions that you can take at this time or at any other time to help protect your legal position. First, if you don't have a will, make one. Get a will. Notaries in Louisiana can assist you with this process, or lawyers, but make your will. If you already have a will, update it. And if you have a medical power of attorney, this is a time to update it. If you don't have one, make that too. You want to make sure you have these records and these illustrations of your desires available in case they're needed. Second, review and update the beneficiaries for any pensions or other benefits that you may have. It may have been a long time. This is a good chance to go in and check and make sure they're correct. Check on your medical insurance and other benefits that you may receive from work so that you know what's covered before you get to the emergency room. Finally, and this is so important, know where your documents are. Put them in a safe place that you can find when you need them. Put them all together, and just in case, worst case scenario, tell someone you trust where these documents can be found so that, again, worst case scenario, people are not searching for the vital documents about your life. Well, that is all the information that we have today. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section on Facebook. I've also provided my contact information if you want to email me, but I think the contact section is probably the best way to go. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope it's been helpful to you.